Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started just because we want to respect our guest today, his time. As you may see, he is still at the school. But today, for our career spotlight, we are doing education, and we are so privileged to have Brent, who is with us today, who is an alum of Lake-Sumter and did his teacher education degree at the University of Central Florida, and was a teacher for a time, and is now an assistant principal at Eastridge High School, correct? In the Claremont area. So I'm going to turn it over to Brent, who will start to talk about his transition from Lake-Sumter and just kind of what it's like teaching, and just answer questions and just really talk about this career field so you have an understanding about what it's like working in the school system.
Ms. Conwell, thank you for having me. Like she mentioned, I am an assistant principal at Eastridge High School. This is my 6th year at Eastridge High School. Before that, I taught a multitude of subjects at Tavares High School for about 6 years as well. Taught physics, social studies classes, some math classes. But now I'm here at Eastridge as a school assistant principal. I did go to Lake-Sumter. As you can hear, I'm still at school. Excuse that. I did go to Lake-Sumter as a student as well while I was going to college. And I was part of Phi Theta Kappa, did some work with the SGA. It was such an enjoyable time, and it really shaped me into determining what I wanted to do. I had some great professors at Lake-Sumter. And I learned a lot of great things while I was there. So going from Lake-Sumter, where many of you all are where all of you all are right now going to school, you kind of get an idea for what you want to do. You're taking a broad array of math classes, English classes, social studies classes, and that kind of gives you a better idea of what you want to do. And for me taking that, I realized I really enjoyed math. And I ended up majoring in math at UCF and did a degree in math education. And the difference, if you determine education to be one of your degree options, one thing to consider is, do you want to go for a pure track? So you go just for history, or you go just for English, or you want an education track where you major in math education, English education, that type of thing. I decided to go for more the education track because I was sure I wanted to be in education, and the courses there would prepare me to become a certified teacher when I graduated. So when I went to UCF, the University of Central Florida, I wanted to do a math education degree. So when I graduate, I would be a certified teacher after graduating. So that's something to consider as well. When I went to Lake-Sumter, they had a 2+2 program. I'm not sure if that's still available at Lake-Sumter, but that was something where Lake-Sumter and UCF had a degree, had an option where they can work together and transfer those credits and get you in line to fill your degree. As far as the teaching job, what really interested me in teaching was the idea that you really get to impact kids every single day. You get to work with kids every single day. And it's that kind of before and after. One thing I was talking about right before we started here was, I think a real popular meme right now on social media is how it all started and how it ended. So when you're a teacher, you get to see how it all started with your kids. You get to see, they come in, maybe they don't know your subject very well, but how it ended, you see that they've learned so much. You've seen that not just they've mastered their subject or they're getting better at the subject, but also they've grown as a student. Remember, they're in your class for a full year. So that's what really drew me to that teaching profession, the idea that I'm helping students, they're getting more successful in their, in their subjects, and I'm a part of that. There's still students who I've taught while I was at Tavares High School who still email me, and they still, ask me for recommendation letters years after I left that school. So many of the contacts that you make as a teacher with a student continue throughout, even when long after they've graduated. As far as searching for jobs in teaching, there's always those subjects where they always will need teachers. We're talking about math, educators, science educators, ESC, which are exceptional student education students. Those are three very high demand positions. So if you find that you're looking for a teaching job in those positions, they are always high demand. When I graduated from UCF, it was around 2008, 2009, when we were really experiencing a kind of recession. It was when I got my teaching job, it was the first year where first year, second year, and third year teachers were all on the chopping block, so to speak, that you could face your contract not being renewed. So one of the things I thought about to make myself more marketable, that one of the requirements for becoming a certified teacher is take your certification exam. Obviously, I took it in math education because that's what my major was in, but I also took some certification exams in social studies and physics, English. So when I sat for the interview, the principal saw that, hey, this is a guy, he can teach his math, but if I also need him to teach social studies or English or something, I could use him for that. So it was a really great way to kind of separate myself from the other candidates. If you have that skill set, if you have that drive to really, let's say, for instance, you're not looking at a competitive field. Let's say you want to become a social studies teacher, where it's a little more, where it's not as difficult to find, where it's not as difficult to, to look to get a job. You may want to go ahead and do a second degree if you can. Not a second degree, but a second certification exam if you can. Something else, as far as going from a teacher to an assistant principal, I would say there's different things you can do to kind of prepare yourself for that. Obviously, the best thing you can do is focus on your instruction in the class. Right before I came to this meeting, I went to some other meetings with my teachers, and all of it was about content, about instruction. How will you know that your students understand what you're trying to teach them? What are the major objectives you hope they get by the time you finish your lesson? So that doesn't end when you leave the teaching field to go to the administration field. You are still an educator. You're still, making sure that students are getting good instruction. You're still making sure that teachers are teaching with the goals and objective, at the front of their mind. So I'd say the best thing to do to prepare if you choose to down the road become an assistant principal or go into administration is to focus on being a great teacher, focus on those best teaching practices, because you will use that again as an administrator. The days of where administrators are just disciplinarians or managers of the building, those days are gone. You're an instructional leader. You're expected to know how to teach and help teachers teach. As a matter of fact, we're doing something new in Lake County right now because of the pandemic called Lake Live. One of my teachers, she had to unexpectedly leave, and I had to teach that class. Now, I probably wasn't as good as the teacher, it's the Spanish class, and I'm not very fluent in Spanish, but we made it work, and some of that goes back to your knowledge as being a teacher. Being an assistant principal is not an entry-level job. They do expect you to teach for some years before you become an administrator. And I tell you, every day I think about teaching. I love teaching. It's the best part of my job. Every time I can get out of my office and go into classrooms and see kids learning. I went to our early childhood class today where our students are teaching kids who are 3 and 4 years old. And just seeing how they're teaching them is just incredible. Things that they're doing that maybe I never thought about, as a teacher. I went into another class where they were talking about the Columbian Exchange this morning. What were some products that they brought from the old world to the new world? What were some products that were already in both places? What were some products that they took from the new world back to the old world? And just kind of seeing, the thought process. That, for me, that's the best part of my job. And I think if you choose to ever become an assistant principal, you have to be a good teacher. Because remember, just like your students kind of know as a teacher, if you know what you're talking about, if you're in it for them, the teachers feel that about you too as an administrator. They may think, well, Mr. B, he understands us. He was a teacher. He knows what we're doing here. He's interested in this. So they sense that as well as teachers. And in the school, some of you all may think, gosh, I like the school setting, but I don't know if I want to be a teacher. I don't know if I want to be an administrator. There are so many other positions within the school. So those of you all who are looking at social work, we have a social worker who works with us to help with our students. We have a mental health liaison. So if you're a mental health degreed person, we have bookkeepers, so accounting. They work a lot with our purchase orders. We have data entry clerks, a lot of entering data into the system. So they're guidance counselors. They work closely with students. Test coordinators. So if you love organizing things into charts and the spreadsheets and getting things organized, that's the job for you, testing coordinators. There's so many different jobs within the school that you can be a part of where you're still working with kids, but your major focus is a different field, whether it's accounting or data entry. So that's a brief summary of kind of what I do every day as a school administrator, what as a teacher, kind of people I work with. And Ms. Conwell, did you want to open up for some questions for these last 15 minutes, or want me to elaborate on something else?
What are questions that you have?
If no one has any, I'm about to take up the 15, so don't be shy. I'm warning that now.
Well, just start with one first.
All right, sounds good. So the transition from, it sounds like a decade before you started transitioning to administration. First of all, I want to know how you handled certificate training. How did you, that's something that I feared, but I like it more in the sense of a job. Like you stand out, because I learned in education classes, like you can be, they literally said the word like put into subjects you originally didn't because you have the certificate, which I mean, you made me feel better about that. But my question is, how did you prepare for that? Like all those types of certificates, you got math, history, like how did you, like did you take classes in the college, or you're just that good at remembering stuff? You're just outclassing everyone? I want to know, like.
So let me reassure you. So first of all, most people, they just do one, right? They just do one. So on your certificate, most people, let's say they majored in English, they would get a certificate where they take a subject area test in English. So grade 6 through 12 if you're high school, 5 through 9 if you're middle school. You just take one of them, okay? You pass that and you're certified. You also need a professional educator test that you pass as well. Just, basic ethics. What do you do if a child comes to you and tells you they've been beaten at home? What do you do? Mm-hmm. And then there's also the general knowledge test. Back in the day at Lake-Sumter, it was called the class, and now in education, we take it, and it's called the general knowledge test. So it's basic math, basic English, basic writing, and you pass that. So if you can pass those three things, Eddie, general knowledge test, professional educator test, and your subject area test, you get a certificate as long as you get your bachelor's degree and your education courses.
Right, but how did you, like, for the rest of the certificates, you didn't have to have a focus, you just took it? So like there's just preparation exams, like here's a book, study it, take the test kind of thing?
You can do that. I always loved history, and I did write a lot of papers, so I kind of had an affinity for that on my own. You may find that you have an affinity for something as well that you're really good at, that might be something you can teach.
Instructional design is my thing, so I don't shy away from any subject. Like I want to learn how to, like, I'm trying to find a way in my lifetime to change accountability in the sense of like how teachers are held accountable. You talked about how, like, how do you get teachers to learn? You have those conversations. My biggest fear is like I'm pretty sure I want to be a curriculum officer, but I don't want to be tied. I don't want to get higher in administration because I'm more valued and then separate from students. Because I feel like I don't know if that was going to be my second question. Is there a job that connects, like a liaison? I have it here, the liaison between a curriculum officer and the people? Like I don't want to be like some human resources or business manager and then talking about I'm going to change the curriculum for public schools. It's like, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? It's like I want to be like that guy that's like, I want to know what teachers are doing. I want to hear the feedback and bring it to people who like. That's kind of like my goal. Is there something like that there?
Right. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm afraid of going to district office myself, because for me, I like working with the kids. I like seeing the kids every single day. I like interacting with them every single day. So I 100% get where you're coming from. It depends on the district you would work in, Eddie. I know in Lake County, we have a lot of program specialists within those areas. So we have a program specialist in social studies who works at the district, program specialist in English, math, and so on. And there's been a big push in these past few years that they go to schools and do what's called a learning walk, where they walk with teachers and the administrators into classrooms, kind of see what the kids are learning in the classrooms. Because you're right, you don't want to be in this ivory tower, so to speak, making decisions, making curriculum, and you're not seeing how kids are receiving that already to even know what to fix. So I would say it depends on the district that you work at. I know in Lake County, it's been a recent push to really encourage those district personnel to come into the schools and watch and see what the kids are learning to make a change.
Okay. You said ask one, I asked two. So if no one has, I'll keep going.
Yeah, let's see if anyone else has a question, and then we'll come back to you, Eddie. So I know you have lots of questions. Does anyone else have a question for those that were just joining? We're here with Brent. He's kind of shared about his journey, so I'm not sure if you just came in, you might have missed that, but he's willing to answer any questions. So is there anything you'd like to know or have a question? Feel free to unmute and ask, or if you want to put in the chat, I can ask for you.
Hi, Brent. I'm one of the academic advisors at the Southlake campus. And one of my student populations is advising education students. And can you kind of speak to, do you think it's better for them to maybe get just like a history degree and then get like certified to teach, or go the route of actually going through like UCF's, certification education programs and then taking the certification exams, like in terms of, I guess, having the most broad flexibility or movability, if they're kind of like, well, I don't know if I really want to be a teacher, but I can go to school, get like an economics degree, and then turn around and teach at the high school or whatever level, or go into like maybe corporate and then go into like economics.
That's a good question. I would say if they're sure they want to go into teaching, like I knew I wanted to teach. I knew that was something I was very interested in. I would say if they're sure they want to teach, go to the school and do an education degree in the subject you're interested in teaching. So if you want to be a math teacher, your life dream is to teach math. Go and do a math education degree. But you're right. I think if you're not sure, but you think, gosh, the corporate world sounds good. Working as an actuary, trying to determine risk and work around with numbers all day sounds great to me. But I can see myself teaching too. We have a lot of teachers who they've worked in the business world, and they've done that. They have their degree in actuarial sciences. They have their degree in biology. They're biologists, and they've done those. So they have a degree in that, and they've done those, like what I was explaining to Eddie, they've done their certification, they've done their 5 education courses, because they realized at that point they want to go into teaching. That's definitely a viable option for them if they're really not sure if they want to be in education, or if they want to go in the corporate world. So I think that's definitely beneficial for them if they're especially not sure. It's more flexibility.
Great, thank you.
If I could add on to that real quick, what's your thoughts on the educational leadership path? Because that's what I'm most concerned about, is like the politics of it all. In that sense, like I don't want to miss out on that, because I'm gonna find a way to like get certified on stuff. So what's your thoughts on like education leadership focus, or the actual, I want to be a math teacher, let's focus on education and with a focus on like a subject?
Well, So when I became a math teacher, I wasn't thinking of becoming a school administrator really at that point. I kind of did the education degree because it was something that I had kept in the back of my mind. But I actually had that degree, and I really let it run. Kind of, you know, it was just kind of there for 4 or 5 years. Um, I would say, as far as if you know you want to go down that path of education leadership, become an administrator. Um, I would say, you know, focus mostly on that teaching. I'm telling you, the teaching is the important thing. I know you're saying you want to go down the leadership route, but unless you know what you're talking about in teaching, remember, your biggest population you're working with is teachers. If you don't know that teaching, if you don't know that instruction, you're just going to be another person up there in the ivory tower, not knowing what people in the classrooms are doing. And that's something you really don't ever want to be, because what fairly or unfairly, you lose credibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Maya or Sandra or Monty, anybody else? Does someone else have any questions?
Like I said, I can keep going. Use that 5 minutes left. Let me know.
It's a pretty quiet group except for Eddie.
I've got a question.
Oh, well, wait. Oh, go ahead, Monty. And then after that, I'll ask Maya's question. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I heard Mr. Brent and Miss Glass mention that kind of differing points. So let's say we weren't sure we wanted to teach, but we of course got to have that bachelor's degree. So like right now, I'm getting the organizational management degree from Lake-Sumter. So if I got that degree and I didn't find my options to be what I wanted them to be, so I elected to teach. What route would I have to go then? Should I just be able to take the exams, pay for the exams, and then boom, I'm a teacher? Or would I have to go take additional education courses?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
There's different educator preparation institutes which kind of prepare you. They have like their own coursework. If you do it in university, it's 5 courses, so a total of 15 credit hours in education that you would have to take. And you take, like I said, the 3 exams. So your subject area exam, your general knowledge exam, and your professional educators exam. And if you go through one of those educator preparation institutes and you do those 3 exams, that would prepare you with your bachelor's degree to become a teacher. I would say for organization leadership, what subject would you be interested in teaching with that degree?
Well, any really. I just value education, but with my career right now, it's more it's applicable in the business world I'm in as a business manager. So it was the most convenient bachelor's degree I could do at the time. So that's why I chose it. But so essentially you're saying it's mandatory that you have to have 15 hours of educational instructor courses to become a teacher in Florida.
Right, and you can go on the Florida Department of Education. They talk about the requirements on there. It's 15 credit hours, or there's certain educator preparation institutes that may have a whole program set forth that you can go through, and if you're a completer, it would suffice for that. And then you also have to take those three tests I mentioned. With that degree, if your focus is business, we do have a business education subject area. But especially in the high school, I know that we offer where they kind of learn the office suite, so to speak. So Excel, word processing, that type of thing. Excuse me. So that's definitely something you can pursue. Just throwing out there, business education, kind of preparing them for writing reports, those type of things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was a question about if they're interested in counseling. what would be the best route? I'm assuming guidance counseling, but I guess what's the best route for that?
I want to say all the guidance counselors in Florida, they are required to have a master's degree. And there's a special degree for that with counseling. And again, that's another subject area test they would have to take and pass to become a certified. They have to have a teaching certificate, even though they're guidance counselors. So that would be another subject area test they would have to pass and take. And I think someone said they're a counselor, so they know some answers to that too.
Yes, that's Mr. Deslack was a school counselor. Do they have to teach for a certain amount of years before they can go into counseling?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. I know in
That used to be
Kentucky,
the
where
same.
I'm from, they have to teach for so many years where they can become a guidance counselor. So, did you have any other questions regarding that route? I believe Maya was the one that asked that question. Nope, that was it. All right. Were there other questions from the other participants? If not, I know Eddie is ready to fire off, but I know we're
But it
getting
is
close on
2:30 and I
time.
value people's time. So if you gotta go, you gotta go. Otherwise, I'm gonna fire away.
Well, we'll have one more question, and then I'm sure Brent will be available maybe to share his email or contact. So if
that's
anyone
okay with
does
him.
have questions, maybe he can share that with us, and then you're more than welcome to get to ask him questions afterwards. But one last question, and then we'll wrap up. Eddie, you had a question?
Yeah. What's the biggest graduate with the bachelor's? Because I want to do instructional design, but I'm heeding your advice seriously in the sense of like getting that credibility and that respect of like knowing what's in the classroom. So my plan would probably be pursue that master's slowly while teaching. It's probably the best route, just to knock out both at once. But so biggest do's and don'ts for getting a job as a teacher once you get all the credentials. You could just give like one or two of each do and don't.
I say the biggest do would be be prepared of a sample lesson. Do sort of know kind of what, excuse me. Do be prepared to kind of know how a sample lesson would be. One of the common questions you're asked in an interview is our schedule is a 50-minute 7-period day. How would you teach? How would your lesson look to fill in that 50-minute period? Or we're on a block schedule where we have 90 minutes. How would you teach to fill in that 90-minute? And because in that question, they're asking a whole bunch of different things. They're looking at your instruction, what are you using, your design, your instructional design for that day, that period. They're looking at, what are your objectives? So are you familiar with the objectives for that course and the Sunshine State Standards or the Florida State Standards? So they're asking you a bunch of things in that. So I would say come prepared to kind of know what your sample lesson would be as a teacher. Because remember, if you're applying to become a math teacher, you should know a great math lesson. So come prepared with that. For don'ts, I would say don't say anything that would show that you don't like kids. Because if you don't like kids, it's probably not the best job for you, right?
Yeah. Right.
I know it sounds super obvious and like, duh, why is he saying this? But you really sometimes wonder with some people, because they didn't come in for the money, they didn't come in for the fame, but you also don't like kids, so why are you in this? So I would say come in with the mindset of you like kids, you want to help kids out. If you don't like kids, definitely stay out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. He did put into the chat his email. So hopefully everybody did get that. If not, I do have that. I can send it to you. But if you have further questions or just have, want to ask him to chat or whatever, his school is in the Claremont area. But you can email him, and I'm sure he would be willing to kind of talk to you more further. I don't know about shadowing or anything. That's probably a whole process with getting fingerprinted and all that, because it is around kids. But we do appreciate Brent's time today.